All right. So yeah, hello everyone. My name's Nathan Pinkney from People's Fundraising. So I'm the CEO, and today we're going to talk about setting a vision for fundraising growth. So how this came about is we we support about 3,500 charities on our People's Fundraising platform, and we support about 60 charities now on our fully charity branded platform. And one question that generally comes up when people start to use our platform more is essentially how can we use our user platform more? And what we see of a lot of nonprofits is either they don't put enough resource into fundraising, or they don't really understand the levers that really enable effective fundraising, or they don't understand the possibilities of effective fundraising. So what we do with our branded charities and non-profits, we essentially spend a day with them, and we call this the fundraising accelerator. And essentially, we throughout the day we go through really setting an actionable fundraising strategy. And so today, what we're going to do is we're just going to spend an hour to go through roughly what we are doing that day. So hopefully, you can either take that forward yourself or use some parts of it to really make your fundraising a little bit more effective. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. Right, which screen am I going to share? Share. Right, hopefully you can see yourselves. Right, can you all see the? Yeah, great. Okay. So, any questions as we go through, please just you know call them out. Okay. Okay. So, set a vision of fundraising growth. So, yes, ultimately, we're going to discuss the steps required to prepare an actionable fundraising strategy. Okay. So when we sit down with our charity branded clients, we go through essentially a process of asking one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, or going through eight different areas within the fundraising strategy. And so the first thing we do is we identify stakeholders related to fundraising. Then we undertake an appraisal of fundraising activities over all of the stakeholders. Then we identify the community, your fundraising communities. Then we look at the channels for which you communicate with your community. And then we look at what the current fundraising ask is. After that, we look at the possibilities of potential fundraising asks. Then we set goals. And then after that, we essentially identify an action plan. Okay, and so this is the general framework that we use with our charity branded clients. And each stage, what you generally find is, especially from the perspective of most fundraising professionals, the framework is relatively understood. However, it's not executed well enough, or not enough time is put into executing these areas within the fundraising strategy. So let's start going down and drilling down into them. Okay, so the first thing we do throughout the day, in actual fact, we do this before we have the fundraising strategy day, and you can do this in slow time, is to identify the fundraising stakeholders. Now, the fundraising stakeholders aren't just, say, the front office fundraising team, and the front office fundraising team, especially larger charities, sometimes that can be broken up into individual giving or community giving or corporate giving. So it's not just the front office, but it's everyone from CEOs to trustees to the back office teams as well. So IT or compliance or accounts. Now, it's important that from a fundraising strategy perspective, you have inputs from all of these different groups because they're all affected and they all contribute to fundraising. So just take IT and compliance or accounts, which is not on here. The reason why they're a stakeholder in fundraising is as you, as a fundraising group, become more effective, you're going to go out and you're going to engage your supporter base more. You're probably going to want to engage your supporter base with more interesting, we call them supporter experiences. And what we mean by that is, you go out and you ask your supporters for donations, which is great, and then the back office team have to integrate that donation stream. And then you go and ask your supporters to do fundraisers, which means the back office team now need to integrate that data stream into their back office. And then you'll start doing things like raffles and auctions and things like that. And every time you have a great idea for engaging your supporter base, there's a corresponding impact into integrating that data, integrating the workflows into the back office. Okay, so never forget about things like IT and compliance, because a lot of the time they enable your fundraising. But also from the leadership within the organization itself, CEOs and trustees. So they are obviously leaders within your organization, but they are also enablers of your fundraising capability itself. So whereby you as a charity, you may have a one fundraising group, or you may split it by individual, community, and corporates. The CEO interacts with a different type of organization that these groups don't. So your CEO may typically interact with different businesses or suppliers. And so not only are they a stakeholder into what they require the fundraising team to do, but also outwardly they are an avenue for bringing in a certain type of fundraising community itself. Okay. So yes, what we believe is the majority of roles within the organization are generally fundraising stakeholders. Okay, not just your front office or your marketing. Marketing and fundraising really go hand in hand, but really bring in the CEO, bring in the trustees, bring in the people who enable your fundraising to take place. Okay, and again, let me just stress that point of bringing the people that you commonly don't bring in. um, Again, IT. Okay, you may, especially after this discussion, you may have 10 different ideas of how you're going to engage your supporter base. Okay, extended events and shops and auctions or contextual shops and whatnot. Um, but that may overburden your IT team. So your IT team may have requirements on how you need to or should extend your fundraising capability. Okay, so yeah, to end this particular slide, identify your stakeholders and bring them in to understanding their requirements and their concerns. Okay, and so this is where we come on to the next section. So when we hold our fundraising accelerator day with our charities and non-profits, this is generally the first activity we undertake. So we have especially for medium and small size charities, we have the CEO in the room, we have the IT representative, we have the front office teams and back office teams. And we sit down and essentially we ask the question, what are your ambitions? What are your concerns? Okay. And we understand this from a SWOT analysis perspective. So we say, what's everyone's perspective on strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Now, the outcome of this is really going to be dependent on where you are on your current fundraising journey, but the utility of it, especially when you have all the stakeholders in the room together, or if you're doing it slow time, maybe you're going to do it over the course of a couple of weeks, and you're going to sit down with the CEO and you're going to sit down with the trustees, and maybe you're going to have a meeting with the IT team, still to ask the same questions. The value of this is to really understand everyone's opinion of where you actually are. So if you're just part of the front office fundraising team, and you don't say ask the IT team, or you don't ask the CEO, you're not where you're going to go in terms of your fundraising strategy is not really going to be enriched by their views unless you ask them. Okay. Now, the other good thing about having an appraisal session, and again, we do this over a course of a few hours on our fundraising accelerator day, is it generally starts to bring people together. Okay, so we think bit similar to the theory and practice behind our platform. We think fundraising is about development of relationships over time, and we do that by understanding that every possible interaction with supporters is a interaction where you can extend the relationship. This is a similar thing in terms of if you get everyone in a room together, you have a particular focus and subject area, you will see that generally the group starts to come together, yes, expressing concerns and maybe weaknesses and threats, but also starting to build a shared vision of where you want to go. Okay, so we would suggest, if you're going to do this, it is better if you get literally everyone in the room together. Okay, and fundraising is so important now. I mean, we all know that things like grants are drying up. We also know that the success of especially the UK charity sector in terms of charities being able to ask for donations and charities having the tools to ask their supporters to do fundraisers, it's been so successful. Now all charities have that capability. So, you need to start doing things in a more interesting way. Okay. So after the approach, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. When you're talking of a SWOT, are you talking of a SWOT of the charity as a whole, your current position across everything, or a SWOT of where you're at with fundraising?
Where you're at with fundraising. I think if it was a wider scope, you'd need way more than a couple of hours. But yes, specifically fundraising. Yeah. Yeah, you need that focus, I think. Okay. Okay, so just imagine you're undertaking this during the day. You've just spent like a couple of hours asking all of the stakeholders what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And by the way, if you were to do this within a day's session, or if you allow us to help you facilitate it, you'll be surprised by how long this takes. As soon as you ask people their opinion, they're going to open up and talk about it. But if you never open up, if you never give people the opportunity, then you're never going to know. Okay, so but you'll really be surprised how long the appraisal takes. And again, it's really important so everyone understands where everyone is when it comes to fundraising. Right? Don't be afraid by somebody's potential impact, or sorry, opinion. You are where you are. Okay. Right. Okay. So then we go on to one of the most important parts of the day, and that's really to understand one's fundraising community. Okay. So we always talk about a fundraising maturity model, whereby when organizations first go to their supporters, they ask for donations. That's the first level of maturity. Then after that, they ask their supporters to do fundraising events themselves. And that's your Just Giving, the old BT My Donate and Virgin Money giving type paradigm. And then charities, they start to engage with their supporters with more interesting experiences like raffles and auctions and lotteries. And then the final stage is where you empower your supporter base to do all of those things themselves. So there's like a four levels of the maturity model. However, one of the things we see, and that is very, very common, is charities don't really understand who their supporter base is. And by the way, we split this into two things: who your community or supporter base is, and also what channels do you communicate with them. Okay, so it's sort of roughly this section roughly comes together. Now, there's a couple of rules of thumb here, especially as you're a charity scaling. So smaller charities, what they generally do is the fundraising ask, they generally turn towards the people in the office and say, do you want to make a donation to this fundraising activity? Or they turn towards the beneficiaries of the charities themselves. Now, I think for smaller charities, maybe that's okay, but if you want to scale, you should always avoid that. So especially turning towards the office, the people who are working, maybe volunteering or working for the charity, they give enough potentially already. Okay, and especially the beneficiaries, you don't want to. It's an interesting paradigm actually to ask a beneficiary of a charity for support, because charity generally, the underlying philosophy of it is to give without the expectation of receiving. So it's almost counterintuitive to go to your beneficiaries and saying, okay, can you now fundraise for us? And so, what are your other communities that you can engage with? Okay, so remember, we always, when we're looking at fundraising, we generally split the communities into three broad categories. You have your individuals. Okay, now from your individual communities, instead of the beneficiaries, um, you have what's called beneficiary communities. Okay, so if you're a charity that, I don't know, helps individuals in some way, we always say don't ask the individuals for support, but look for the communities of those beneficiaries for support. So that's like family and friends, for example, of the beneficiary themselves. Okay, now similarly, if we look at the corporate fundraising, you really need to focus on the beneficiary aspect of the corporate fundraising itself. So a lot of charities think, okay, it would be so great to get a national company involved, with our fundraising. Of course it would. However, where there's, maybe a handful of national companies, just say Tesco's, for example, there are thousands of charities all asking them the same thing. Okay, why don't you support us? Okay, and we know, like, organization like Tesco's, they can only, really engage with a handful of charities. So you really need to focus on the beneficiary aspect of the companies themselves. Now, what is a beneficiary company? So, a beneficiary company could, for example, be a company that's local to you, and then the benefit to the company is that they are supporting a local charity. Or, for example, if your charity, through its charity activities, are using certain products, it could be a company, for example, that manufactures those products. Okay, so the key thing here is focus on and we call it a value exchange actually. Focus on the value exchange between yourselves and the company, or yourselves and the individual, or yourselves and the community. Focus on what you give and what they receive in the return. Okay, so look for beneficiary companies. You've also got, if we go back to individuals again, you've got beneficiary communities. And remember, we've said, okay, don't focus on the beneficiaries themselves or the charity, but you also, and this is where tracking comes in, you've also got what we've called alumni beneficiaries. So if you're a charity that's helping somebody now, through some period in their life for some reason, as a rule of thumb, don't ask them for fundraising support, but track that person through the life cycle of the support you give them. And once they don't require their support, so therefore they become an alumni beneficiary, and they are, as somebody who you have helped in the past, they may want to help you in the future. Okay. And similarly, we've got the alumni beneficiary network. Okay, so that's the network of the person you've helped in the past, but they now no longer need your help. Okay, and this is where, again, when it comes to fundraising, fundraising is more than just going out and asking your supporters for donations or enter the raffle. This is now where fundraising enters that world whereby you need to understand who as a charity you're supporting and who their network is, and the life cycle of that person as they go through your support to therefore no longer need your support. Okay, so you're actually tracking, the people that you're supporting in their networks, and when they don't, and then you're asking them for fundraising, right? So, yeah, fundraising is becoming quite an interesting thing now. It's really easy asking for donations, but when you want to scale, when you want to do it a little bit more effectively, you have to put in things like, tracking, of your, beneficiaries. Okay. Now, the other a couple of really nice areas are obviously suppliers as well, but they're a bit similar to asking the office for for fundraising. However, they may support you. And one area that's growing a lot are ambassadors. Okay, so ambassadors could be, generally you see these in terms of patrons of a charity or whatnot. But what ambassadors bring is not necessarily themselves giving you any funds or such like that you can raffle or auction things off, but they give you access to a wider network. Okay, so when you're engaging with ambassadors, try and understand what the value exchange is between yourselves and themselves, but specifically for ambassadors, what you can or how you can enable the network of the ambassadors to support you in terms of the fundraising context. Okay. And ambassadors, we see this really as a growing area for charity support just because of the access to the network. Okay. Now, fundraising is all about accessing a wider network, isn't it? And this is why ambassadors are growing. But ambassadors are a bit similar to company fundraising. The question you ask yourself when you invest money into engaging your communities is what value you get from them as well. Okay. So when you engage in a company, again, what's the value? Now, one of the biggest values you get when you engage with a company is access to the company's own employee or client base. Okay. Yes, they may give you some money, which is great. But especially if it's a large company, then you have you have a built network already there that you can engage and they can participate in fundraising as well. So the other thing we try to stress when it comes to understanding who your community are, individuals, community, it could be local school, local Rotary Club or whatnot, or company fundraising, is it's really about expanding out your network reach. Okay. All right. So um, after the you start to identify who your community are, then we look at the channels for which you currently communicate with your supporters, and you can communicate with your supporters. And by the way, sorry, I should have mentioned with the community, it's who your current community are, or who you think your current community are, and who your current community, or sorry, your community could be. Okay. Right, so then we look at channels. Okay, and again, the reason why this is important is because you will because fundraising is about development of a relationship between you and your supporter base. Okay, that implies you are having a conversation with your supporters, and then you're asking them to do things. Okay, so one of the mistakes we see, especially actually medium-sized charities make this mistake all the time. They spend such a long time making their website perfect because they think the website is a really, really important thing when it comes to fundraising. And it is a relatively important thing, but in terms of fundraising, it's not the most important thing. And the reason why is because fundraising is about continual development of a relationship with your supporter base. You need to focus on where you're having that conversation with your supporter base. Okay, and primarily that will be, if it's online, it will be your social media channels. Okay, and if you have a lot of physical presence, it will be within those physical locations. And so, therefore, the question is, well, what's the purpose and value of a website? Well, the value of a website is obviously to have that online representation of who you are and what you offer. But a website is almost like a endpoint; it's a reference point, isn't it? Nobody has a conversation on the website. It's if you just like say look at Facebook. Um, the value of these social media channels is that you have your followers, say on Facebook. Again, you could be looking at any other social media channel or any other channel that's conversational, and you're talking about the successes and the failures, of the charity. And as you're conversing, you point your supporters to the relevant fundraising ask. Okay, now that could be something like, well, okay, you're running a raffle and then go to our raffle page, or running an auction, or we're doing a sleep out and go to one of our contextual shops. And all of those fundraising asks, you may never actually go to your website. Okay, so the important thing is identify, with respect to who your communities are, how you communicate. Okay, so looking at the channels, there are essentially two types of high level channel. There's broadcast and narrowcast. Okay, so broadcast are the ones that everyone knows: social media, email, newsletters, websites, or magazines. And they're roughly ordered in what we think is the most important to focus on. Okay, so websites again is towards the end, because people don't have the conversation on websites, they have the conversation on social media. Okay, but even email is potentially more impactful than the website, because although it's not a two-way conversational tool, you are broadcasting out your supporter base, and they may reply to that. Okay, but you are directing a specific communication to them, and that's the same with newsletters as well, as opposed to a website is, I go to a website and me as a supporter, what am I doing? I'm not sure. Okay, and also things like physical locations as well. So utilize all potential interactions with your supporters as potential opportunities for fundraising. So if you have physical centers, then have the QR codes all over the place and little posters on, you probably do already, but like, make a donation, or sign up for our become a member of the organization, or something like that. Okay. Now we also have narrowcast, and narrowcast is often forgotten about. Okay, so narrowcast is when, instead of broadcasting to a wide audience, you're maybe it's a one-to-one interaction, or it's a smaller audience. And if you notice here, we've got the CEO and trustees. Now, a lot of organizations, the CEO will defer fundraising to the fundraising team. However, things like CEOs and trustees, again, they interact with a different group within the organization. So potential other charities, potentially companies or suppliers. And so the CEO, when they're having those conversations with suppliers, other charities in terms of partnerships, and maybe companies, as long as they know the fundraising asks and the fundraising possibilities, then they become a conduit for fundraising as well. So the take from that is, you need to empower, with knowledge, your CEOs, trustees, and anyone who engages with your communities with the possibilities of the fundraising ask as well. Okay. Right. Any questions on that in terms of who your community are, and understanding how you communicate with them? Right. Now, the next thing that we ask, so this is really the third stage, is what is your current fundraising ask towards your fundraising community? Okay. And this is where I suppose we as an organization start to kick in. And this is a really good time to say, okay, if we look on our website, what are we saying how what are we allowing our supporters to do to fundraise? Or if you look on our social media, and we're pushing out the success stories and the day in the life of the CEO, what are the asks we're asking of our supporters? And again, this is where we can relate back to the fundraising maturity model. We know that donation fatigue is an issue, because everyone has the ability to take donations now. That if the only thing you're doing from a fundraising perspective is asking your supporter base to make donations, then after a while they're not going to have the means or inclination to donate you. And then the second level of fundraising maturity, we know that only 20% of your supporter base are ever going to undertake a cake bake or marathon run. And the reason for that, the research is in now, is you're actually asking them to do something that's expensive in terms of time or energy or resource. So take your typical marathon run. Just imagine the effort somebody has to go to train for it and to run it. Or even something like a cake bake, that's an expenditure of potentially skill, money, and time. So yeah, it's not surprising that only 20% of your supporter base are ever going to do this. Okay, right. So just as an example, I was just looking at a few of the people who signed up for today, and I'll go through some of the some websites now. Although the website isn't the most effective communication tool in fundraising because it's a reference point, you can get a good understanding of what the charity's fundraising ask is by looking at their website. Okay, so let me put this on screen. Right, so can you see the Two Wish website? Yeah, great. Okay, so I'm looking here, and the question is, what is the fundraising ask? So I know that the donate now is a fundraising ask. Okay. And so typically, it's really quite interesting actually. A lot of charities have the donate button in the top right hand corner. And remember, donation fatigue is a thing. So this is something we always think potentially review that. And then if I look at get involved, I've got fundraising here. And I scroll down here. What's the imagery that it's showing me? Okay, so this is an example of a charity who are really within that level 2 maturity model of fundraising. If I'm a supporter, it looks like the only thing I can do is to do a marathon run or cake bake or something like that. Okay. Now, if I look at other things like maybe corporate support, so remember we this section here on their website is really focused on individuals. If I look at corporate support now, the question is what's the value exchange that they're offering the corporate? And let's have a look here. You'll have exclusive support from our corporate fundraiser. We'll help you meet your CSR responsibilities. Something about team building. And you'll get some website mentions and social media mentions. Okay, that's quite interesting. And so from a corporate, if you're a corporate, have you differentiated yourself in any other way from any other charity? Okay, right. Let's have a look at another couple. So I just chose the first I think three, and then I looked at the netball development one as well. ISIS. Okay, so what has this charity got? So what's the fundraising ask here? So support our charity. So it's quite a nice website. Let's find out more. And again, immediately the imagery is saying you can either donate, or this is telling me I can do a cake bake marathon run type thing. Right, let's go to this one here. Me Too Club. Again, what can I do here? Let's look at support us. Corporate. Let's look at fundraising. Challenge events heavy. Cake bake heavy. And like easy fundraising. So the three examples we've got here are really good examples of what we refer to as level 2 maturity fundraising. Okay, so they ask for donations and they show that their supporters can do cake bakes or marathon runs, which means at the moment they're not really engaging with their supporter base as much as they could. Okay, so sit down with the team and really say, what are you really asking of your supporter base? How can they really support you? And again, always coming back to the statistics, donation fatigue is real, and only 20% of your supporter base will ever undertake fundraising events. Okay, so by this point, you'll have a good understanding of your current fundraising position. Okay, everyone, within the appraisal component, people will talk about and raise their concerns and ambitions and things. Again, that is if you're going to do that in person, that will take way longer than you realize, and it will uncover things that you'd never thought about. You'll start to uncover fundraising communities that you hadn't necessarily thought about. And also, you'll start to understand how effective some of the channels on which you communicate. So, should you spend more time on your website? Probably not. Should you spend more time on more conversational channels? Probably yes. Okay. Now, where we come in as a platform, so we're an infrastructure charity, we help you understand the possibilities that can come through technology enablement and your imagination. Okay. Now, we always split or we differentiate what we call supporter engagement and supporter participation. Okay. When it comes to fundraising. So, supporter engagement is where you go out to your supporter base, individuals, communities, and companies, and you ask them to engage in some fundraising activity. So, maturity level one charities, they just ask for donations. Maturity level three charities, they may say, well, why don't you enter our raffle or enter an auction? Okay. Now, supporter participation is something slightly different. And again, it's really important to understand the difference between the two, is where you go to your supporters and you say, well, you can fundraise for us. Now, the difference there is engagement is you as an organization, say there's one primary fundraiser within your organization and you have 1,000 supporters. Okay, so you as a primary fundraiser can just say set up 5 events throughout the year because that's all you can do within that year, and you're going to those 1,000 supporters. Okay, so participation is where you go to those 1,000 supporters and you can say, you can fundraise for us. Now, if those 1,000 supporters maybe have a network of, say, 10 people, that's 10 times 1,000. Okay, which is quite a lot. So that's more than you can do in terms of engaging your supporter base. Supporter participation is where your supporters go to their own network itself. Okay, so it's really important to understand the possibilities that you have to engage your 1,000 supporters and the possibilities that your supporters have to engage their supporter base. Okay, so the examples we gave, or the examples I showed of those three charity websites, it looked like engagement was make a donation to us. There wasn't really anything else that I could see there, but support, the only thing support they had in terms of supporter participation was you can do a cake bake marathon run. Okay, and again, only 20% of that those 1,000 people are going to do that, and also donation fatigue kicks in with that mode of supporter participation as well. So if I were to do a marathon run, my whole network would be so amazed they'll donate to me and you'll receive the money. But if I were to do like 5 throughout the year, even my wife wouldn't donate to me anymore. She'll just think, look, Nathan, you've just got the running bug and I'm not going to donate to you anymore. Okay, so note that donation fatigue kicks in all levels. Okay, so I'm going to show our platform now, the People's Fundraising platform, and show you some of the possibilities. Right, hopefully you can see our newly updated website. Okay, so the idea of the platform is that we empower you with the tools such that you can engage your supporter base with more interesting experiences. Okay, so through our platform, you can do the normal things. So you can ask for donations, in memory, fundraisers, and team fundraisers. So this is level 2 fundraising. But you can also, in terms of engagement, and you're probably starting to do these things if you're on this call already, and this is why you're on your call, because you've signed up for our platform for probably more things than just asking for donations. But you can set up raffles, tombolas, sell tickets for an events, ask for memberships or sponsorships, do auctions, lotteries. So these are your national lottery type lotteries, members lotteries, gift vouchers, and shops. Now, as a infrastructure charity ourselves, we're ahead of the game when it comes to fundraising. So as you develop your maturity in supporter engagement, what you'll realize is that, again, if the only thing you're doing is asking for donations, donation fatigue is going to kick in. Then you'll present different types of fundraisers. So that fundraising ask may now be that, yes, ask for donations at one point in time, but enter the raffle. You don't want to go over the board on any particular type of tool because fatigue will always kick in. And also, you want to give your supporters a slightly different form of engagement because it's more interesting. Okay. And also, different segments of your supporter base will want to do different things. So, whereas a certain segment of your supporter base may want to enter the raffle, others may want to bid in an auction, or others may want to buy things from a contextual shop. Okay. So, our platform enables you to do all of those things. Okay. So let's see a couple of examples of these in action. And by the way, if you want to look at like literally thousands of these, at the bottom there's a find a fundraiser, and you can just search up on all of these categories of things. Okay, but let's have a look at a couple. So so this is a branded platform actually. So it's exactly the same as People's Fundraising, but it's just charity branded. I'm going to look at their raffle. So this is a really nice raffle. And again, the key thing here is got the charity branding. It says it's what it's all about. You can win £3,000. You can go and buy tickets, which is great. Yeah, just it's a different experience to just asking people for donations, or uh, this is another charity branded platform. This is We Are Beams, and they are running a really nice members lottery at the moment. Now, things like members lottery. So with the members lottery, I'll just tell you a little bit about them. You essentially sign up with a direct debit, and you purchase as many chances to win as you want. And then the system, depending how you set it up, you can set it up weekly, 2 weekly, monthly, etc. The system will automatically draw and then continue the following week, month, etc. So in this case, their 50-50 lottery, it's a really good lottery actually. They've only just started this, and you can win either £100 or £425. I think they've only just broken even, and they've been running it 19 days now. But what they will do is, as the money generated by the lottery, the first prize will be £100. Then they will change it to a prize share. Okay. Now, if we start to look at these tools and we say, well, okay, so which tool shall I use? You need to think about, again, engagement means an engaging experience. It just doesn't mean interacting with a supporter. It means engaging them in such a way that their interest is kept. Now, things like members lotteries, we think will supersede things like the regular donation ask. And the reason is this. So where all charities have the ability to ask for donations now, and regular donations, essentially it's a one-way communication. It's an act of giving, and then yes, you may send them some emails and stuff like that to say thanks and whatnot, but essentially it's a one-way interaction. Okay, with things like members lotteries, or we'll go through other tools in a minute, it's a chance whereby when a supporter gives, they have the opportunity to potentially win something as well as supporting you, which is always a good thing. But importantly, just say this runs, so this particular lottery runs every month. You've now got the opportunity to engage your supporter base every month, not only to talk about who's won, but also to communicate potentially some other activity within the organization. So again, we're using the tool to, yes, generate income, but also, help your supporters feel good that they may win. But we're using the fact that you need to go out and you need to talk to your supporters about who's won as another way of engaging your supporters, or another excuse. Okay. So yeah, don't just see tools. And this is the thing with just a simple donation button in the top right hand corner. It's a way of people giving, but is there the opportunity more to have a constant interaction with them? Okay, so things like members lottery give you that ability and the excuse to have a constant interaction with them. Okay. All right. So yes, we provide the ability you can do all of those sorts of things. So if we look at the people's fundraising search, yeah, just come here and look at all of these different sorts of categories. I mean, they're great. I'm just going to open up a few at random. I have no idea what's going to be behind the pages. So let's have a look. Okay. By the way, you can change the look and feel on people's fundraising as well. Okay. So they're auctioning a cricket bat. How cool's that? What's this other auction? Looks like that's finished. What were they auctioning? They were auctioning stuff. So an entry to things, heating. What's that? Cut and blow dry. How cool's that? So when it comes to, it's quite interesting actually. When it comes to things like auctions, raffles, tombolas, shops, the other takeaway I think from this is what can you auction off or raffle off, okay, or tombola off, okay, and this is where you can become really or create really interesting experiences. So, for example, typically people go to local businesses, and you can go to the local coffee shop and get some free coffees and things like that. Always do that. Why not? Because companies want to support you, and maybe they can't support you with money or access to the employees, but they can support you with widgets. So you can always auction and raffle those things off. But you can also auction and raffle things off that aren't so tangible or not physical, tangible objects. So a really good one is whereby you may auction off to your corporate partners the benefit of having the CEO coming in and doing a talk within the company, for example. So you can, or you may raffle off that the company or the group, or maybe it could be a local school, can come to the charity and see how they operate for their day or something like that. So you can be really creative with the things that you have to auction, raffle, sell in your shop and whatnot. Okay. And actually, I'll just show you another one actually, and this is another raffle. Um, so this is another charity branded one. This is YMCA Thames Gateway, and they're doing a raffle called "Why Are You Calling Me?" And they've literally only just started it. And what they're doing is so people can buy raffle tickets. You can pay with Google Pay, Apple Pay, or debit cards. So you can buy as many as you want, but the winner, and you can also add an optional donation. The winner has a chance to win. What's the winning prize? A cash prize of, I think it's a of what is that? It's a cash prize of 50% of whatever's generated. Okay. Now, so that's quite nice in itself. So you can always like raffle things off, or not auction, but lottery things off, which is a percentage of the income. But the reason why this is such an interesting raffle is the way they're using it to engage their supporter base. Remember, it's always about development of that relationship with your supporters. Okay. So what they're going to do is the system at the end of the raffle will randomly draw 10 entrants. Okay. And then the CEO is going to start at the first person and call them on the phone. And the first person who answers, "Why are you calling me?" wins that 50% of the cash prize. And again, you can see here it's an amazing tool to really engage your supporter base. Because remember, it's development of a relationship with your supporters beyond more than just we've got a raffle and you can win 10%. That's a great tool. But this is another imagining of using that same tool to really, you know, engage your supporter base and get them excited. So you can just imagine like what their Facebook, and I don't know, their Instagram channels are going to look like on that day. It'll be like, has anyone been called? Has anyone been called? Who's won? What a great, exciting experience. Okay. All right. So let's go. So we're talking about the tools that you now have to um, engage your supporter base. But what about your supporter base participating? And remember, your supporter base can be individuals, they could be communities, local schools, local Rotary clubs or whatnot, or local companies. Now, our platform also allows your supporters to do all of these things as well. Okay, and again, this is where technology really enables you to take that, a few steps forward from where you generally are now. So also note, remember, 20% of people only do fundraisers. So now your supporters, be they local businesses or schools, can set up their own raffles or memberships or sponsorships or auctions or members lotteries to support you. So an extreme use case I give, but I think is a really good use case, is with the use of shops. By the way, a lot of charities are starting to put their shop on their website now, and that's good, but it's not contextually specific enough. So we all, one of the number one rules of fundraising is the more specific the fundraising asks, the more people are going to engage. Okay, so if you just have a shop in the top right hand corner of your website, from a fundraising perspective, why do I want to go there? But for example, if I'm doing a sleep out, and people are, maybe with a local company and the employees are, sleeping on the street for the night, you may create a contextual shop that just sells beanies and I don't know, mugs, just specifically for that event. And so you can see it's a contextual shop. It's not just a shop, therefore it's more relevant. Okay, anyway, let's go back to this shop example and about supporters participating in fundraising. So I'm a local business and I want to support you. Now, yes, I can do the normal things. I can make, some donations and whatnot, but I haven't really got any money to give you, and maybe I haven't got an engaged employee base that are going to fundraise for you, but I still want to support you. So I create toasters, and so what I'm going to do, I'm going to commit 10 toasters to supporting you. Okay, so I, as a company, can now set up a shop page with the 10 toasters on there, and then people can come and buy those 10 toasters and the money goes to yourself, or you can split it, right? But this is a really good example of you're empowering your supporter base to fundraise. I know a lot of fundraising platforms say this, fundraise in the way they want. So we're not limiting them to do cake bakes and marathon runs. We are empowering, enabling them to do really creative things. So yes, companies can, allocate some of what they produce to supporting you, or the company could potentially auction stuff off or raffle stuff off or do something in the tombola, etc. Okay, or maybe there's a local school and they will sell tickets for the event at the same time, I don't know, hold a raffle. Do you know what I mean? So there's so many combinations of these things that you can use to engage your supporter base, but also your supporters can participate at the same time. Okay, right. So I may have spent a little bit more time on that I wanted to. Okay, so know the possibilities. Know that there's technology that's there to really enable you to engage your supporters and your supporters participate. Okay, so I think the last two sections now. So once you understand who your supporters are and who your potential supporters are, and what channels you should really focus, what the current fundraising ask is, but also what you can potentially ask of your supporters and how you can empower them. This is the time where you can now set specific fundraising goals. And the only thing here really is just you should do this, we think, in a smart way. They need to be specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound. Okay. Um, and again, this is something that you just go through. Um, and it's a nice activity. Then after you've gone through your goals, then just having goals doesn't mean anything happens. So you need to enable your actionable plan. Okay. So you take your goals and you say, in order to achieve those goals, what actions do we need to undertake? So just a couple of take homes from this. Every action needs to have a start date, end date, a responsible owner, and success criteria. Okay. Um, Delegation is really important when it comes to setting actions. And also, you should review the plan occasionally. So especially when you're starting out on a new fundraising strategy, don't think you'll be able to set a plan of action, into the next year. Maybe there are going to be a couple of exploratory actions. For example, maybe the exploratory action was somebody is going to go out to the local or the beneficiary companies. So we know they're beneficiary companies now, as opposed to just companies, with a renewed understanding of value exchange, okay, and to sign up 10 of them within 6 months. Okay, so you may want to review that plan after 6 months, see how things are going. Okay, so yes, action should always have a start date, end date, responsible owners, success criteria, delegate. In other words, especially for small and medium sized charities, don't push everything onto the shoulders of the CEO, and just review. Okay. Right, and yeah, to wrap up then. So I just noticed we spent nearly an hour. So to wrap up, a fundraising strategy really requires that methodical approach, rather, to understanding who your stakeholders are, going through the critical activity of the appraisal. You really need to, as a group, as a charity, understand where you all sit, where people think the strengths and weaknesses are within the fundraising current activity. Okay, but then practically looking at who your community are, but really looking at your community. Come away from asking the office for donations and fundraisers. Come away from asking your beneficiaries. You are a charity, and what I say to charities is that if you exist because of the people who've seen the amazing benefit that the charity itself is providing. If you exist, and especially if there are people who either volunteer or work there, there's going to be a corresponding community out there who think that what you're doing has also a corresponding value, but they can't give, they can't work, they can't volunteer because they're doing something else. So look for those people who, like yourselves, see value in what you're doing. If you're doing it, there's other people who want to support you doing it, but they just can't. Okay, practically. Okay, so understand your community, understand the channels, and note that the conversational channels are the most important channels to focus on in terms of fundraising. Be realistic with your ask. Understand the possibilities. If you want some more creative ideas in terms of possibilities, especially using our platform, just come and ask us. We're always here for you. Define goals, and then define the plan and execute it. So rather straightforward. And as I said, we provide this as a free day to our charity branded clients, and it's such a really, really great day. And it's full on day. It lasts about 6 hours, especially when you get all the stakeholders in the room. But you can do this yourself. Maybe spend a few weeks doing it in slow time. It's just a great activity. Okay. But as I said, in terms of possibilities, we're here to support you where we can. So thank you very much. Any questions or queries on that?
If I may, on the shop point of view, I'm assuming you don't offer the distribution side as well. So we'd have to find a way of the postage side and holding stock.
That's right. So we've got a new feature coming up. So that's going to be about 8 weeks' time, whereby you can select partners who will also distribute for you as well. Yeah. But at the moment, yes, things, the raffles, the auctions, all of those things, you're responsible for distribution. Yeah, that's correct. All right. Okay, everyone. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to present. And yeah, you can email or call us if you have any questions. And have a great weekend. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.